Hello, beautiful. I'm your host, Nicole Goff. Welcome to the Ecstatic Life Podcast, the podcast for women who want to live fully embodied, nervous system regulated, open-hearted, radiant, and alive. Here we explore the practices, modalities, and lived rhythms that return you to yourself, to your heart, to your body, your intuition, and your divine spark. This podcast is for women who are ready to awaken their inner creatrix, activate their inner manifester, and remember, an ecstatic life isn't a destination. It's the path we're walking together. I know, like, as moms, sometimes shit happens, like, literally, like, I was doing a recording and someone was like, oh my God, my toddler needs me to wipe their butt. Like, it's all good.
I would leave it in. Yeah. One of my core principles is authenticity. I think if more women show up like the real raw version of them, like I'm a human who needs to go take care of my child, like I leave all that stuff in because it gives other women permission to be their real self instead of that polished version.
Yep.
So I hope you leave everything in.
Well, we already hit record. Maybe I should just jump in with that and not even do the intro. Let's do it. Welcome to the Ecstatic Life Podcast. I am so excited to have you here. Today I have Amity Rose, who is a betrayal, recovery, and relationship repair mentor. And as you can see, because I'm going to leave that beginning part in, we have already been chatting behind the scenes, and I'm already super pumped up, super excited for this conversation. Actually, I have been for like, what's it been, like 2 months we've been trying to like get on with each other. As soon as I found you, I was like, oh, we are so aligned, especially in the relationship arena and especially in the self-accountability arena. And so, yeah, welcome.
Thank you for having me. So the ecstatic life, like that matches your energy. Like when you say it, like that's you. I could feel it, like it comes off you. So it's such a match for like your expression, your presence.
Funny story about that. My whole brand, a year and a half ago, I was branding myself as Holistic Life when I decided to, open up my coaching business, my podcast, my blog. It was Holistic Life. I was at an ecstatic dance and I got this download from God, and it was like, holistic is played out. You have to be ecstatic about life if you want to like make a difference. And I was like, all right, I hear you. And so I changed all of my branding right before launch from Holistic Life to Ecstatic Life.
It matches. And speaking of downloads from God, because we're talking about my new account growing, right? So I'm in this betrayal, recovery, relationship repair piece, which is fairly new for me. But I have about 10 years of experience in clinic hypnotherapy and female entrepreneur mentorship. So what's interesting is I've been doing that for so long, supporting these women, and I was not sharing my story of how I came to be a leader in this field. So I just, was supporting women, but they didn't know the how or the why. And so you just mentioned the download from God, and it was last year, like November. God was like, Amity, you did not go through all of this to not share your story and walk other women through this. I need you to start sharing your story. And I was like, okay. Because I had been supporting women very much in the same way, but without that element of my powerful story of how I got here. And so I got this opportunity. I live in Los Angeles. I got this opportunity to speak on stage. And I was like, what a big way for me to like come out and share my story. And so I'm on stage at an event in Hollywood and I share my most shameful moment as a woman. And I don't know how far back you went on my account, but I had an addiction to alcohol and it was very messy. And the moment was I drove drunk with my children in the car. They were like 3 months old and a toddler, 2 years old. And the shame of that moment, if I would have allowed it, it would have eaten me alive. And I took it and I used it to harness me into becoming a completely different version of myself. And this summer will be 18 years sober. And those 2 little girls have never, like conscious memory, have never seen their mother intoxicated. And so that's the story like I've been having. So I've been working and mentoring these women, but they didn't know those little nuggets and all of the other things, right? With the betrayal with my husband and all that, like those were behind the scenes informing my work. But they didn't know those pieces. And so God is like, you need to start sharing. And so I'm on stage and I'm like, hey guys, this is what I did. And there's something really powerful because I have zero shame about it. it took me multiple years to get to that moment, right? To heal the shame to where I could speak about it. And my kids know and all that, but it's like, I realized like that's part of my soul's work here is to help women transform shame into light. And we're all carrying something. So maybe it's not addiction, maybe it's not alcoholism, right? But like every woman you talk to, she's got something that she's got shame around. And if more women like me show up boldly under the orders of God, and if they can see me and hear me, like, well, here's this woman. I don't celebrate that moment in my life, but I do share it in the way that like it doesn't have to define you. And it could actually be the catalyst to a better version of you. So there's a parallel reality where I didn't do anything and I just went down this dark path, right? And things are messy and ugly, but that's not my truth and that's not my reality because I used that moment of shame and I got to work and I dedicated myself to becoming a woman that my daughters were proud to have as their mother. And so that's why I show up so boldly, because I feel like it's part of my duty here. And then another one of God's things, right? So I share that story. So I show up online. I'm like, I'm going to make this new Instagram account and I'm just going to share my story. And so I start throwing it out there. And I think that's when we connected because you were still with me on the beginning part. And I kept getting these messages because one of the things we've navigated through is marriage infidelity. And every week I would look at, because I don't know if you've heard this from your mentors, but I've heard from a few very successful business people. They're like, I don't show up and share what I want to teach and share. I teach and share what my audience wants to learn and hear from me. I allow myself to be a vessel. So it's going from selfish to being of service. And so every week I would analyze, like, what did people really connect with in my story? And then I would lean in more the next week on that. And so I was refining and sharpening each week. And it just became really apparent. And I remember the night before I did it, like I couldn't even really sleep. I was like, am I really being told to like lean into this betrayal recovery? Like what? And I even told my husband the other day, I was like, Amity the human, I have zero interest to go online and broadcast marriage infidelity. Like that does not sound fun or anything that I want to do. But I was like, when you're led like that and supported, and I was like, okay. And I just leaned in harder. So this has been a whole journey of like leaning in and listening. And then I got these messages of these women and things. And I was like, okay. And then, yeah, it just kind of exploded. I'll hit 2,500 this week. And I grow every day. And what it does is...
I've been watching it. That's how before we hit record, I was saying, like, it's like when I started following you, you're at 500. And it's like in a couple of weeks, it's like 1,000. 2,000, 2,500, like I was like blown away watching, like every time I checked in, it was just boom.
But all that says is there's women out there that need support.
Yes.
That's all that is.
Well, and I feel you're like speaking to me in this moment too, because I needed to hear that. Like I have pivoted a bit in my messaging and it has been because, honestly, I was having shame around my relationship. So my messaging for a long time has been about relationships and self-accountability and doing everything to make yourself awesome, regardless of what your partner is doing, and lifting up the relationship in that way. And stepping into your feminine. And there had been a few weeks of tension between me and my husband. And I was like not feeling posting about relationships. And so I just hard stopped. I was like, you know what? And this is I was following the same thing, what my audience was asking for. And this was the thing that was consistently getting thousands of views and, likes and comments and, people messaging. And then probably for the last month, I have not been talking about it at all because I had this feeling of like, well, who am I to talk about it when I'm feeling resentment right now, when I'm feeling disappointment right now? And I'm working through my own thing. And so I actually pivoted and I've been talking about other things. I've been talking about dropping into your feminine energy in business, particularly. I'm just going to go this direction for a little while. And there has been a little like misaligned feeling. And it's funny because in that, this huge dip happened. this huge dip happened all over the place. And so I'm like hearing you and I'm like, okay, I'm making this about myself. You're right. Like, you're right. I needed to hear that. I am not channeling what needs to come through me. I am in shame about that, and I need to work through that. And actually, like, things me and my husband worked out what was going on between us. But yeah, yeah. So, well, thank you. Thank you. A little mini coaching session for me.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So I found a couple of things there because I had an old account and I kind of like, what do I want to post today? What should I say? It was all about me. Me. And it didn't go very far, right? I got clients and referrals and, I had a successful business, but not in the way that like I wasn't impacting and helping as many people as I knew I was here to impact. And so this time around, I pray, just use me. Use my story. Use me as the vessel. I will say what you want me to say. I will show up. I will speak loudly. I will get in the room. Just use me. Use my testimony to help one other human being. And before, I just used to be very selfish. It was all about me. My views, my likes, what I said, what me, right? And I had some success, but it's void of real fulfillment. I feel so fulfilled now. It's a lot of work because I'm helping a lot of people. And I had a call yesterday with a new client and I was in tears after, just in so much gratitude that I get to do this work. And had I not gone through all that I went through, and I was telling her, right, I was helping another woman in the depths of her shame. And it was like, there's a difference between a woman who's gone to school and read the books or listened to the podcasts, and it's very analytical, right? I can have a degree in shame. And there's that person. And then you've got a woman who has walked a path and healed her shame 100% of the time. I would hire her. A woman who has walked through the fire and came out the other side than the person who like has a degree in it, shame, and it was like, that's the power that we have. So after you transmute what you're currently navigating, the depths in which you can hold another person increases. And it's not from a like, oh, I know what she's going through. You feel, you can hold her, you can create that space, you can be a safe place for her. Like, that's invaluable. And so like, I just was weeping in gratitude that it was like, how can my darkest days now be like what my life is now? And I feel like I'm a beacon of light for women, and I want to lead a movement of healed women. And I will shout from the rooftops, no matter what you've been through, no matter what happened to you, no matter what you've done, like, you're redeemable, you're restorable. Because I was coaching this woman yesterday, like, there's the event that happens, right? And then there's like, we as women, we're so hard on ourselves. And we repeatedly punish again and again and again, right? One event, maybe a couple times, right? And then 3 years later, we're still replaying it or still rethinking it or still beating ourselves up about it. And it's like, that's what I want to help women with. Like, let's address self-accountability, responsibility, ownership, absolutely. But the repeated punishment is not required. It's not necessary, and it prolongs the healing process. So I'm like, God, give me more people, bigger rooms, get me on a stage. Like, I feel like part of my purpose is like helping shine a light of women, like, you can transform your shame. And if you see me get on stage and talk about my most shameful moment, what it does is it silently gives permission to other women to look inside them where they have shame. And it's like, wait, I don't have to carry this anymore. I can forgive myself. I can heal myself and set myself free. Thank you, Amity. Like, that's what I live for. Because what I talk about is highly uncomfortable. I was telling you earlier, I don't know if we hit record, like, I would not be sharing this online if I didn't, it's not what I wanted to do. But it's like, it's what's here, and I'm so grateful.
I feel also that like leaning into that. And so I do this with my daily practices. It's like leaning into the thing that feels hard a lot of times really does give the most reward as well. And, that's we were talking about Shoshana Raven. And of course, you follow her. I was saying I am in her program right now, the Money March program. And we have a call coming up right after this. And that's her whole message, right? Her whole message is slaying shame. So, like, of course, you knew who she was. But leaning into that, I feel like that's a threshold for me. Where I'm at now, and there's so much I feel to unravel that sometimes I'm like, oh my gosh, where do I even start? Where do I even start? I feel pretty secure and safe in myself now. But there's a whole story and there's so many threads. And I'm like, how far back do I go? How far back do I go? Because I spent, since I was 14 and was raped at 14, I spent decades shaming myself since that incident. And it's only been the last few years that I have learned how to love myself.
I think you have something very powerful there.
Yeah. It feels big though. I went to college. I wanted to become a psychologist. I was headed into a PhD program. I wanted to help women with sexual trauma. I wanted to help heal sexual trauma. I wrote a book on mindfulness meditation for sexual trauma. And then I had a bunch of kids and I took a break from college and decided to become a coach instead of going back and spending $100,000 more in student loans.
And we
But
just spend it on coaches and mentors.
oh my gosh, right? Oh my gosh. But yeah, that's a whole other conversation. It is so important to have some like people there, like at your back. But yeah, so like that was my original passion was to help women in that area and to get over that sexual shame, get over the trauma and yeah, it's not something I'm used to talking about online. That's why I'm kind of like searching for words for it. But it's always felt so big. Like, I don't even know. I actually recorded a 2-hour podcast where I talked about my experience with the rape and the sexual trauma that followed that. And I never released it because it just feels so big. It's like I don't even know where like to start opening up that can of worms. So yeah, I've focused on a lot of other things, but yeah, definitely it's there and needing to be used. I don't know if that's the right word, but harnessed for the good that it could do for other women, and I know that.
Yeah. And I don't think that every woman should, I don't like should, could be broadcasting their private life on the internet. I certainly don't think that that's everybody's path, you know? So it's like if something feels deeply private, it could remain that way, just because I'm out there yelling wildly and stuff, right? But like Amity the human was not very into that. It's very much spirit led, where the path I'm on right now. And it's like, so if it doesn't feel like something that's like, hey, this happened to me, like we want to respect that as well. Like maybe it's a smaller impact that makes. Maybe you release that guide and maybe it's a book you end up writing, or maybe, you know what I mean? Maybe or you have group coaching programs that you help navigate women healing, and it's on a smaller scale that feels more safe, because what I talk about is very polarizing. I didn't really know that, honestly. I don't know if that's innocence or just whatever, but I didn't really know that it was as polarizing as it was until people let me know. They have very strong convictions about it. And it's such a personal opinion. And even with my clients and my clinical hypnotherapy background, but even now, I have never and will never tell another woman what to do. That is not, I mentor her on helping her healing her relationship with herself, but I will never tell you to leave or stay. I will never, those are personal decisions that you make. What I do is help empower you, heal you, move you back into a sense of wholeness, completeness, knowing your worth. And then I trust you. They borrow my trust. I kind of infuse them with power and trust, and I support them like you're okay to make your own decision, because so many women don't trust themselves. Well, should I leave? Should I go? Did I make the right decision? Right? We've been having our whole life. Do I look okay? Did I talk too loud? What do you think about what I'm wearing? We've spent our whole life outsourcing trust. And so when I work with women, it is rebuilding that self-trust. So I've never told a woman what to do. I empower her to make her own choices. And so the other thing too is the shame. I have no shame around the decision I made to rebuild my marriage, because enough time and space and healing has happened that I can show up boldly, and they hurl wild projections at me. And because I've been in this space long enough about personal and spiritual development, like I recognize, I'll read messages and I was like, oh, somebody hurt you bad. And I bless them. And I literally, these are awful words projected at me. And I will close my eyes and say a prayer. And I will just see them infused with love. They're hurting. And I have enough spiritual and self-awareness to know that's what's happening. Because otherwise, when you put yourself out there around such a delicate subject as sexual trauma and infidelity, you got to be prepared to receive. They're all projections. Nobody's inside my marriage. A comment on TikTok or Instagram or wherever, like, that's not about me. That's about you, honey. And I know that. So it's like there has to be a level of emotional maturity, mental and spiritual strength to be able to show up and talk about these things that are so delicate, as a sexual trauma, because there's going to be so much projection. So I don't think this is the path for everybody. But if you feel that God calling of like, my story is impactful, I need to share, and just start to listen and follow that. But I would never, right? If he cheated on me yesterday, I wouldn't be on the internet, talking about it.
Yes. Yeah. And so I've experienced the same thing. So for the past, when I first started, and I'm newer into the coaching world, and I launched my business about a year ago. So I'm about a year in.
Congratulations.
Yeah. Yeah. So my podcast
What
is
did you
just
do
over
before?
a year. I ran 2 not-for-profits. I run a homeschool cooperative, and I ran a farm, and I ran a art co-op. A lot of community work. I also supported women with graphics for their small businesses. Lots of stuff. But I finally, after I had my 5th child, I was ready to. I spent, when I got pregnant with him, that was when I really got into my self-care, my really like rebuilding of myself. And part of that identity was I wanted so much, like I said, 10 years prior, to be a psychologist. I did 5 years of university, chancellor's list, like 4.0, like I was like all about it.
Wow.
And I let that fall by the wayside in motherhood and all that responsibility that I had taken on. And I finally, when I was pregnant with my 5th, I was like, you know what? It's time for my reclamation. It's time to follow my passions. And so that's what led me into the coaching. Like I said, I didn't want to go back for another 4 years of college and spend another $100,000 to get that degree, because I realized in the meantime that the degree is bullshit. Like you said, it's that life experience. Yeah. So yeah, but so I, about halfway through, I was coaching on feminine reclamation, speaking online about feminine reclamation, and as I said, like the posts about my relationship, and I don't remember if I said this before we hit record or not, but I was posting about my relationship. Yeah, I think that's in there in the beginning. I was posting about my relationship and how we healed, because we were at the brink of divorce. I had given him back my wedding ring. And in fact, he got me a new engagement ring for Christmas, because I told him we had to date again. We had to start all the way over. I said, I'm not ever having that relationship again. It's a new relationship.
Yes.
So I never put my old wedding ring back on, but I gave him back my wedding ring. I was done. And all of the healing that I had done, I was perfectly okay with myself. And at that point, he's like, no, I do not want to lose you. And he started changing, and he started, meeting me where I was at, and doing some of the work himself. And so when I started talking about that, I got a lot of feedback that was saying like, yes, from my audience, yes, this is what we want to hear. And so I started doing some coaching workshops on that and some one-on-one with that. And yeah, so putting that out there, it's so funny because I was saying and have been saying for, like I said, the last half of a year that I changed myself and it saved our marriage. You would not believe how much hate I've gotten from men. I get messages and comments. Like there's been some I had to turn off the comments because men would be like, you're so selfish. Like you were a stay-at-home mom. Like how dare you be disappointed? He's out there working to provide for your family. Like just and I'm leaving out all the spicy words and all of the, just hate. But I went through the same thing where it was like, and I would respond back, or else I would just in my mind say, I'm sorry that someone hurt you like that. I'm sorry that you went through whatever you went through that causes you, so much anger towards women. But it was very shocking to me. And, a few women have come in and, not as many as the angry men, but some angry women have come in too and saying like, basically it's all the man's fault and I'm letting him get off the hook, that, I'm being too easy on men, that I'm victim blaming. And, it's sad. I really feel for the people like that have so much hardness around that,
It's just hurt.
And it is. Yeah. That
Unprocessed pain.
Yep. They have put that shell around their hearts. And yeah. But everybody
and here comes this woman on the internet sharing like a success story, and it triggers them.
Yep.
That's all that is. And I think, when you do the spiritual work that we do, you can recognize that it still stings. Like when I go on and I can tell the beginning of a comment, like I don't engage and I don't indulge, like, and I can tell immediately, like, this isn't going to go anywhere, because here's the difference. I am very much open to constructive feedback. Like I posted a video on TikTok and I got so many comments and I looked through and there were some that were valid. Because here's the thing, like I have a whole, 2 decades with my husband, and I put a hook and a caption. And then as I looked at their comment and then I looked back through it, because in my head and my heart, I have all the lived experience of those decades. But what I had created was an incomplete picture. And so these people were letting me know, like, no. And I looked back and I'm like, oh, you're right. And I actually like responded. I'm like, thank you so much. And then I went in and edited it because I realized like whole chunks that I have in my head and my mind were there, but like they were missing from the content. And I use that going forward. I always make sure that it's either more vague or really indeed, I was just mindful about that it's a whole picture. And it's like, I'm always open to getting better, learning, growing, pivoting, adjusting, refining when it's provided in a kind, constructive way. And then you just have trash. And like, that's what I don't have time for. And so the other thing too is I wanted to touch on as you were talking, because this was me the last probably 8 years of my business, and you're, new in the coaching. So you show up online and you got some traction with the relationship repair. And we as women, if we don't practice like increasing our capacity, we will shrink. Too much attention, too much projection, too much, right? I put myself out there. I was seen, right? More visibility. And we got all this energy coming at us. And 90% of women back into the turtle shell. Okay, that was enough. I need to pivot. I need to get offline. I need a social media detox. Right? Back into the safety zone. And so I speak to that from personal experience, because that was the last 8 years of my business. I would get a YouTube video that went wild, and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna go get my real estate license. And I shit you not, that's what I did. I got like a slew. My videos were going wild on my YouTube channel. And I was like, I'm gonna stop YouTube and go get a license in real estate. And that's what I did. I got offline for a year. And I look back and I'm like, what the heck? Like, ride the momentum, Amity. But what I saw was, it was too much out of my comfort zone. Growth was happening and I shrunk back. And so This time, having learned from personal experience, when I get more visibility and I get videos that go wild or more comments than usual, I'm like, bring it on. More people, bigger rooms, bigger stages, more. I will talk louder, I will talk more boldly, but that comes from years of shrinking. And so I just want to plant the seed for that if we lean into the exposure. And I think the other piece too is now my mission, my dedication is far more important than user 557 and the garbage that they leave on my content, And before stuff, it would take me out. I would take it personally. I didn't have the capacity to hold it and to power through. And now I do, right? I worked on myself to bring it on. Bring it on.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the first time I got one of those, and it was a man. And I still remember what he said. So that tells you how much it stung that first time. He basically said, why don't I stop trying to pretend I'm an intellectual and get back in the kitchen?
Oh, interesting perspective.
I know. I was like, whoa. So yeah, at first it did it was like, oh, does this reflect on me? Is this something wrong with me? And my heart rate would go up. I would get hot, I would have a reaction. And then after a little while, I started leaning into it and I realized, oh no, this isn't a me problem. This is the you problem. This is a him problem. He is lonely. He is hurt. He has hardened his heart to women, in relationships. And this is projection. And that transformed the way I see those now. And now I just have empathy and sympathy. And I just, yeah, like you said, I wish them the best. Yeah. But yeah, at first I was like, whew.
Yeah.
Lots of feelings.
I wonder if even the pivot from the relationship and you pivoting again was, and only right? And it isn't right or wrong, but this was a little bit too much for me, my checking out and going into real estate after I got videos that went viral,
No, as you're saying that, I was 100% because again, like I said, and so I went from 250 to 550 followers really quick. And I had suddenly gotten several coaching clients. And I think I did get overwhelmed because I did. And maybe I even caused tension with my husband subconsciously. That'd be one to look at. Probably not. No, it was external stress. My teenage daughter and her fiance and their son moved back in with us, so the house got a little chaotic for a minute. So external stress.
We do have. It's called an upper limit.
Yes.
So in clinical hypnotherapy, I help people change their internal thermostat. I'm not active in hypnotherapy anymore. I just did it for several years. So that's the comfort zone, is that internal thermostat. And so through the subconscious work, we would be shifting that internal thermostat. So you got a little bit to the upper limit, and the body and the mind and the spirit's like, we got to get you back in this comfort zone, Nicole. So we're going to not talk about relationships. We're going to go into the feminine, or you know what I mean? And it's a self-protection mechanism. Nothing's wrong. It's that innate way of keeping ourselves safe. But the more that we recognize and see what it's happening and that awareness, okay, I was able to connect the dots to me getting offline, going into real estate. And I was like, this is wild. And it's when we have that level of awareness, and that's how now I'm lean in harder, accelerate,
Yes.
So using all that, depending where you're going now with your content, and if you stay and lean in, because the other thing I think is challenging is if we're constantly changing what we talk about, and again, from experience, if somebody lands on my page and one day I'm about this, and then the next day I'm this, and next month they check back in and I'm about this, and you're like, what does this woman do? And I think if you have millions of followers and you've built a personal brand, I think that's more doable. But when you're growing, there's got to be a level of I'm creating an account where Amity does this. I have hundreds of things I'm interested in, but if you find me online, I'm being known for one thing. You're right? The relationship repair piece. And it makes it so easy for people like, okay, am I in that season? Can she help me? I need her. But if I'm talking about hypnotherapy and then visualization and then gardening and then, all these other things that I'm interested in, it's confusing. But again, self-protection mechanism, because I need to keep myself in this, can't get too big, Amity, can't get too many eyes on you, can't get too many opinions. So it's all like, it's fascinating how we operate as human beings.
Yeah, that's been one of the biggest challenges that I've come across in this last year of moving into this entrepreneurial space. And I will tell you, being an entrepreneur is not for the faint of heart. Holy shit. Like, I thought I was like healed and all this growth and, overcame all the stuff in my marriage and the sexual trauma and blah, 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 blah. And then I'd start a podcast and a coaching business and all this. And all of a sudden I'm like, what? So all this stuff comes back up. Like, where did all this self-doubt come from? Where did, it's just so much. Yeah, not for the faint of heart. And luckily I am not a quitter, because there were a few times I hit some spots where I was like, I just want to curl up and die.
And then as you transmute it, as you move through it, you build strength and resilience and confidence. And they're like the things that my husband and I have gone through, and even with my children, I have 3, you have 5, and it's like, bring it on, life. Because once you navigate like really hard shit, your confidence and your ability, not that life gets easier, but you get stronger. Like I think if you like line up all the like major life events, my husband and I have navigated all of them together. So it's like, bring it. And when you haven't really gone through anything, when life's been kind of easy and just, floating by, I think those people are much weaker just by experience, because you haven't had anything that's really challenged you to develop your skills, to look into self-discovery, to really put you on an accelerated healing path, which entrepreneurship does. Having children, getting married, and starting a business are the top 3 accelerators in personal and spiritual development. And you're doing all of them, and so am I. And so I know what kind of woman you are. Just because you're in those 3 arenas, I know the fabric and the essence of who you are, because not everybody signs up for that. But you're like, game on. I came here to play. Let's do it.
Yep. And like you said earlier, not everybody signs up to put their life on the internet. And that's one thing that I've always been really comfortable with, is visibility. I did a lot of acting, and I hosted open mics. I was really into like poetry events. And so I did it for, 2 decades, hosted open mics, and very much into being on stage, and never had a problem with visibility. My husband is the polar opposite. And so part of this, like showing up with our marriage first, and like he will go along with like being in reels with me and stuff, has been really uncomfortable for him. And I asked him, I was like, he's almost finished with my brand new podcast studio that he has built me. And I'm like, will you be my first guest? And his face like fell. He looked like a deer in the headlights, totally terrified. And I'm like, it's okay. Like, you can say no. And he's like, that's too far out of my comfort zone. Like,
yeah. Remember the internal thermostat? Yep. Alert. Absolutely not,
Yep. Yeah. I scared him good with that one. But, I was like, I'm over here, he doesn't want to talk. He's like, I'm happy to be in your videos. I'm happy to support you. And I'm like, I'm over here talking about all these things we've overcome. We did not overcome infidelity, but we had some physical altercations earlier on in our marriage. And that was really, again, I've gotten pushback with that. Like, you should, if a man ever puts his hands on you, that's it, gone. But as you know, there's more to the story. And I did a podcast episode with a woman a few months back, maybe 6 months ago. that she wrote a book about her husband's infidelity, and we discussed that. That was the whole podcast episode was on betrayal and forgiveness and doing the work that's required. And that's not just about turning a blind eye. It's not to say like, oh, I'm just okay with that. Like, no, he had to become a different person. He had to become a person that I trust again, a person that I know wouldn't do something like that again. So, and that requires his own work. And I know from what I've read in your story, your husband, the same. It was like he stepped up and did his own work, because the woman can't hold it all. Like we can't hold up the entire relationship. We can do all the work. And if the other partner does not like meet you where you're at, because I would never coach another woman to stay in a relationship. And I think that's one of the misconceptions. And I'm sure you get this as well. It's like, well, you're victim blaming, and you're just telling the woman to like do all the work and deal with it, and deal with the, narcissistic, everybody loves that term right now, the narcissistic
It's a very
husband.
hot word, yeah.
It is. And that she should just tolerate. And it's like, no, it's not about that. It's about what can you control. And first, you can control yourself. You can control your actions, your words, your thoughts. First, you can work on yourself and do what you can and be
That's it. That's all we
responsible for
have.
your side.
That's it, period.
Yep.
Like all we can do is work on ourselves.
Yep.
The world and people respond to the work that we've done, because essentially that's what happened. My husband did the work on himself. I responded because there was a new version there. And so it pulled out a different response from me. But it started with him. It wasn't anything I was like, you need to do this, right? Because then that's not authentic. So it's like all we have is the work that we do on ourselves. And then everything responds differently as we begin broadcasting differently.
100%. Yep. Yeah, and self-accountability. I think that was I bring up victim shaming, and I was full on a victim for 2 decades of my life, Like I was in
From the event that happened
victim.
at 14.
That was what started it, but then I really like bought into that role. And I had subsequent things that happened. I was in an abusive relationship, and I really took on that personality, that victimhood mentality. I really wore that. And I wore that like an armor. I wore that as a defense for many years. And so breaking that down, like I don't victim shame, because I know what it is to be in your victim. And in being in the victim mentality, you sometimes become the perpetrator.
Mm. Mm. Wow. Like that statement alone, so powerful. And I teach this. I have a free workshop that I offer online for, anyone that finds me. And it's just everything I wish a woman had told me when I found out. And one of the things I talk about in there is the difference between your identity. Like we are not going to identify ourselves as a betrayed woman. We are a strong, beautiful, powerful woman who experienced, right, cheating in our relationship. Two very different things. And so you talk about your experience. You took on that identity. You made it you versus just me being a perfect being who had this awful experience. And women, they blend it, the thing they did or the thing that happened to them, as who they are. And the more we can separate, then it becomes a much more manageable process, because you let that take over your identity for, way too long, and then attracted additional experiences that like, I always liken it to like, there are always opportunities like, hey, Nicole, do you want to look at this? Oh no? Okay, I'm going to come back. You want to look again? You know what I mean? And it just like, sometimes we do that for years until it's finally like, okay, I'm willing to look at it. And then that's when we can do the transforming, healing work. But we had to spend 10 years learning the same lesson because we weren't quite, whatever it was that we needed to do. So I always share that to make sure there's a separation between who you are as a valuable, lovable human, like just because you exist, that your worthiness upon arrival And like, there's nothing you can do to change it. You can have all these experiences, some positive, some negative, some neutral, right? You go on this roller coaster ride of being a human, but your inherent worth, your inherent value is never in question, ever. And like, that's what I get to, you know, I have clients that are actually the ones who betrayed. So it's like, I get to support people on both sides. And, you know, I can support them there because even though I didn't cheat, I shared with you about, you know, the alcoholism and the things that I did. So I understand shame on a very deep level and the shame that comes from cheating on a partner. And we're not talking the serial cheaters, you know, we're talking about the stepping out once and or multiple times, you know, whatever the circumstance is, but it's like they're using it the way I use my shame and transformed it into becoming a better version of myself. They're using cheating as that seed of shame to transform themselves into their better self. And it's like, I coach them and mentor them of like, you're not this act you did. You are inherently perfection. You made a huge mistake. Yeah. Let's take accountability. Let's take responsibility. Let's take the necessary steps to repair, right? You've messed up some relationships, right? And what that requires. And that's time and consistency and the transformation of self, right? I messed up a lot of relationships in my alcoholism. And slowly, as I was sober, I would repair them. But trying to repair a relationship like while I still drank, how's that going to work? How do you repair a relationship if you're still cheating, right? So it's like that piece, like I'm just such a firm believer, and I will shout it from the rooftops of like how these inherently like bad things can be the best thing that ever happens to a person.
Yeah.
Because that's my truth. That's my experience. And that's the experience of my clients. And I pour that into them. I plant the idea and I can see their like head spin. They're like, what? You know, am I cheating? Could be the best thing. But what it does is it expands because it's so linear. Right now, you cheated, you're horrible. In the marriage, right? You know, there's so just one-sided viewpoints. And here I come and you hire me and I just expand your whole perspective around you're perfect and lovable and valuable. You made this huge mistake. Or, right, you're perfect and lovable and this happened to you, right? Regardless of like what character you're playing. And this can actually be the seed of the best thing and the greatest life because you're extracting the wisdom. Like I have I'm working on it right now. It's a marriage rebuild blueprint because I realize a lot of my clients are in therapy and we tried therapy like once. I don't know if you guys tried therapy.
Yeah, so we went back and forth with several therapists, and this is something that I harp on a lot in my social media content, that it's like talk therapy doesn't work for a lot of couples. And a lot of it's you're dragging your husband to it. So a lot of my wording is solutions that don't require dragging your husband to couples therapy because it becomes part of the fight.
Yeah. And I think there's a time and a place. I will never tell someone not to go, especially if it's a resource that can support them. But I realize there's a huge hole between, I have these people like, how do I rebuild? How do I rebuild trust? How do I trust him again? How do I stop these, you know, these thoughts in my head? Like how the actual like structure. And I was telling my husband, I was like, I didn't realize this is what we were doing. But like looking back, like hindsight, I was like, we literally like created the blueprint for a new marriage. And then every day, the same way you would rebuild a house, we architected a new marriage. Because you mentioned, right, the ring is gone. I got a new ring, new marriage. Like Our old marriage died, dead, she gone. And what happened was a new marriage, new people, new standards, right? There was some non-negotiables put in place because I liken it when you're rebuilding trust, it's very much like a cocoon stage. Like our world got really small because, you know, when you're just living life, you have friends and social media and all that. But when trust is like dismantled and shattered and respect is gone, like the outside world has to go away. And it gets basically you and your partner. And it's like that for a while you rebuild, right? So your world gets real small, but it's like they don't know what to do. And I was like, I know what to do. I can help you. I did it. And we're 22 years together. And this is the best part, Nicole. We get better. Every single year, we get more in love, happier, more joyful, richer, more intimate, like better. So it's not just like, oh, we stay together, but it was like, I told him yesterday too, he didn't like it because my husband's like you. I show him the messages about like the women write me, and I was like, this is why I do this work. And that makes him happy, but he's not loving being out there on the internet like your husband, you know?
Yeah.
But it's like that.
Especially when he is the quote unquote bad guy.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So I told him yesterday, I showed him this message from this woman, and I hugged him and I said, thank you for cheating on me. And I meant it. And he didn't think it was funny at all. But I was like, how can our worst moment be, look at all the women I'm helping because of what we had to navigate? You know, like that is what I want to model and what I want to show women, that something that they thought, even with you, right? What happened at 14 and even all the other events that happened, like something that like we've been told to just is so shameful. Don't talk about it. Don't share about it. Right. And it was like, I want to broadcast to everyone that like those moments could actually be something that you're proud to have navigated.
Oh yeah, 100%. And I am completely. I keep saying I need to write a book about it, and
Then you probably need to write a book about it.
it's been on my heart for so many years, and I need to like really just sit down and like
Yeah,
do
why
it.
don't you make space for it this year?
I should. This should be the year because I've been talking about it for, oh my gosh, a decade now. So
Okay. And that too, maybe you don't want to write, if you don't love social media and you don't want to broadcast in that way, that maybe it's the impact that you have is through your book. You know, maybe that's the way that you impact and help people heal, is through the written word, you know?
yeah. Oh, going back to what I was saying before, it's been such a difficult thing to navigate, like the niching down, because like I did, like I said, being called to like talk about my marriage, and that really spoke to people, and people are like really into that. But I'm like, okay, there's that niche there, but then I'm like, but there's all this other stuff over here that I want to talk about, and part of that would be like, I think the underlying message is choosing yourself, pouring into yourself and your healing. And it's like, that's so broad. And when it comes to social media, that just doesn't work. Like you said, it doesn't work.
Yeah. I found that it was because I was that way. I still am that way. And I had to learn through many years that it was a form of self-sabotage.
Yeah.
That I was like, I can't niche down, or I'll talk about this and this. I was self-sabotaging myself in the name of I'm multi-passionate. You know, I can't niche down. Like it looked like it makes sense. It's valid. But all I was doing was self-sabotaging myself because I wasn't growing at the rate. I wasn't impacting as many people. I wasn't, you know, and I would blame it on, well, I don't know how to, you know, pick one thing. Or I don't know how to communicate. I used to say, I don't know how to communicate like what I do, right? Because I work with the mind and I help people heal. I do all the intangibles. And now everybody knows the story of how I got here. You know, I was my own first client. I had a lot of stuff to heal. And then as I mastered that, I naturally was able to, you know, help other people. But for me, and I'm willing to bet the potential's there, that if we want to be honest, it's a form of self-protection and self-sabotage to keep us within that thermostat zone, that comfort zone, and keep us within that limit. Because if we were to go all in on something, that's explosive. That's right. That could propel you. You doubled. You went from 250 to 500, you know, overnight or within a couple of days. And you're like, reel it back in. Cause what are you at right now?
550.
Okay. So you had that jump, and then would you stall out?
Yeah. I stalled out over the last month. Yeah. And clients and everything. I was just like, woo.
Yeah.
But I will say this is just turning into my own like personal session with you. So thanks for the free coaching.
You're welcome.
But you know, part of me wonders though, if it isn't the sexual trauma thing I should lean into and not the marriage stuff. Because that, again, going back to that, that's where the real, like, you know, the real fear of, like, you know, putting myself out there in that way. Like, who am I to talk about something so big, right? That's
Didn't
huge.
you?
But
That's your
of
lived
course that,
experience, right?
of exactly, that's exactly what I was about to say. Of course that's me to talk
Yeah.
about that, you
Because
know?
I don't have that. That's a trauma, thank you God, that I didn't experience. I am not qualified to share on that in any means. So you're qualified because you
Yeah.
experienced it.
Yeah, and I don't know if everything else is just kind of spinning my wheels until I get that story out, you know?
Yeah.
It could be.
Yeah. Is that what you want to share about? Well, no, I can't even ask you that because I don't even want to be sharing about this. So
Yeah,
I don't
right.
even know if
Want.
that's, yeah. Yeah.
I've
I,
I've been called to
oh,
help other women heal in that area for the last I started my healing journey when I got pregnant with my 19-year-old at 21. That was when I began my healing journey
okay, let me tell you.
because
I have a 20-year-old and I had
mm,
her at 22. So where,
yeah, I had my eldest at 22 also. But yeah, got pregnant with her at 21. And I was a hot mess. I was a hot mess. Me and her dad were engaged, and I had just given him the ring back and said, "Nope, this isn't gonna work out." I was a ball of trauma all over the place. And then I found out I was pregnant, and I was like, I have to get my shit together. And I changed my entire life.
mm,
So that was where that healing journey began at 21. And in it was about 4 years later, I realized it's my life's passion to help other women heal from sexual trauma. And that's when I went back to school, went to college for the first time at, I think I was 25 when I went to, yeah, because I graduated when I was 30. So yeah, I was 25 when I went to college. And yeah, so that was always the goal. And yet here I am talking about marriage and talking about whatever else, you know, softening into your feminine in business. And so, yeah, it's possible I'm just spinning my wheels and not following that.
it sounds exactly what's happening. And that you know exactly what you need to do and you're just scared.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's a lot when it comes to topics like that. And again, this is probably self-limiting beliefs, and this is probably another way I'm stalling, and you can go ahead and call me out on it too. But I'm like, well, I didn't get my PhD. I'm not a
Oh God.
psychologist. Who am I to talk about like such a
I had to navigate that story in my head too, right? I have a couple of degrees. I did go to school. I went to college like you, right? But it's like not enough. I didn't go to enough college. I don't have my master's in psychiatry or, yeah, I have that narrative. It's all bullshit.
Yeah.
All bullshit. You're highly educated. Okay. You've been in a relationship for how long? Married?
Whew, we've been together for almost 15 years now.
Okay. Qualification again. You've raised 5 human beings. Okay. Qualification and the stuff that you navigated. Like you're more qualified than most people on the planet to teach and share and guide, right? It's a fallacy to think that an institution that delivers you a piece of paper somehow is going to be like, oh, okay, now I can share my story. And so I really want to poke holes in that narrative that because even what you would learn in that institution, it's very textbook, very analytical. And even look at the work that you teach now with the feminine recollection, like institutions don't have that. That is void of any of
Oh,
that.
yeah.
So thinking that you need to go get this academic paper when the lived experience, like I sat with a new client yesterday and I'm telling you, I'm degreed. It didn't have anything to do with how I held her and supported her. You know what did? What qualified me? My life experience, what I've lived through, what I've navigated. So I think the more that you poke holes in this idea, see it as what it is, it's a stalling tactic, acknowledge it, I see you, but I'm not going to give you any of my energy. And the more that you sit with women, the way that you do in your group coaching and your retreats and like that, ask yourself, because you did go to college, looking back and reflecting, there might be pieces of your academic career that like played a role in that. How much of your lived experience did you use in all of those different events and sessions? I'm willing to bet most of it.
Yeah, it's really, I think what it comes down to is that I had to heal my nervous system and become safe and comfortable in myself, with myself, before I could hold space for anyone else. And
100%.
nothing in college would teach me that. Although I did do my thesis on mindfulness meditation for sexual trauma. So that was actually like,
Yeah.
that's what I did my honors thesis on. Yeah. Yeah. That was part of the beginnings, you know, the mindfulness meditation, yoga. That was kind of my entryway into the healing that I did. So, yeah.
I hope the next time we connect, you've started your book, and in some shape or form that you rebrand again, because I find that be known for one thing, you know, at least for a while. And it sounds like that's where your heart is. And it's like, if I had that trauma and I can go to a PhD in sexual trauma who's diplomaed up, and then I find you, who would you hire? I mean, even you being on that end, right? You would hire you any day of the week.
When it comes down to it, you know this and I know this, but it's people don't buy because of credentials. They buy because of energy, you know? And what did you say when we first got on the call? You're like, oh my gosh, you're like so much. What'd you say? What was the word you used? Not prettier, but like.
No, your essence, your presence. Yeah.
More vivacious, more, something in person.
You're glowing. Yes. Your
then on
content.
On the posts. Yeah.
Exactly. You're much more radiant.
Yeah.
Than in person, you know, with you here. But it's my intention that this call like really lights something in you that like, so, and I had this plague too, and I'm really mindful about it now. Distraction is an enemy. And when you're hyper passionate and multi-focused, it's, well, I love this and I love this and I love this, right? And it just, it's the enemy, like, I don't even like that word. It stalls and it lags. Like it took me almost 10 years to get to what I'm growing now. I've always wanted a community. I've always wanted to impact thousands and eventually millions. I've always wanted to share in a powerful, meaningful way. It's taken almost 10 years to become the woman that could hold it, that could do it, because of stalling, because of self-sabotage, because of distraction. Girl, I told you, I had viral videos on YouTube, and I got off YouTube and went and got a real estate license. What? Because I'm interested in real estate. And then I did that for a year and a half, and my soul was like, this is not where you're supposed to be, Amity. And all of that, it's right, but it's like, oh, I'm multi-passionate. There's so many things I could do. And if I'm being honest, like it was just a distraction. And I thank God for it all, because it landed me here. And this is where I want to be. And so everything, right? We want to be grateful for everything. But I think you're at like a pivotal moment of like, no more distractions. Like what if I, Nicole, go all in on one thing? Like I live and breathe this thing I've created. And anything that's outside of that, my business, my clients, and my family, that's it. I have very little time for anything else, but I've spent decades letting myself be distracted. So I wonder if that's like where you're at too, because this conversation is not an accident either.
Oh, I was about to say the exact same thing, because I don't believe in coincidence, and it seems pretty divine that you stepped into my life at this moment. At this moment, especially because I have to tell you, I was like kind of down in the dumps for a month. Like I said, that's when I was like pivoting off of what I was doing on social media, because I was starting to question everything. I was going through that quantum crumble, as they call it, where I was just like, everything is overwhelming me, and everything, like I was maxed out. And I think part of like joining Shoshana's Money March and just making the decision that I am getting my energy right, like I'm feeling like magnetic and on the up, and like I'm feeling I'm feeling like big things are on the horizon. But
Me too.
a couple weeks ago, I was like,
And distraction plays a big role in that.
yeah. Yeah.
Because when we're into so many things and it focuses here, here, and here, nothing really has all of our power and attention. And it's like, it adds to that overwhelming feeling because things are coming at us from all different directions. But like when we laser in, like I'm wondering, Nicole, if you were to just give maybe, what is it, March 5th to April 5th, like what if you just leaned into healing sexual trauma? And that's what you focused on. Clients, content, writing your book's on that, right? And anything outside of that versus your children and your husband, right? The priorities, I know you signed up for Shoshana's thing. So like have that support you in the creation of all this. And what if you just paused and said no to everything else for the next like 30 days? Like just a little self-experiment. And then reassess April 5th, how things went, how it feels. Because why the face? Is that scary?
So fun. No, it's so funny. So my coach, she's like, just told me to do the same thing. And I was like, all right, I'm going to do that with my B2B, the coaching women to soften in business. So I already like stepped into that for this month, which is funny.
But that's not really what you...
No, it's not. Yeah. Yeah.
So
it's
for
like,
being honest...
I know. I already like made that. I'm like, I'm doing that. This is a month I do this. We're softening into the feminine, and yeah, it's just, yep. I think I think making the commitment to writing the book will probably really, like I said, that's been on my heart for so many years.
Why are you not taking action on it?
I know why. Why am I not?
And constantly pivoting.
Yep.
I'm gonna try this. I'm gonna do this. Because your B2B, the supporting women and softening, is that like, is there any connection to the sexual trauma healing? That's just a whole nother...
I think that is the starting point for everything I've done. That is the thing that happened to me that put me on the path that I am on now. I wouldn't be here. That's the event in my life, that rape when I was 14. That's the event in my life that really changed my entire trajectory, So everything, all the healing I've done, everything stemmed from that experience,
I would challenge you. I know you made a soft commitment already to, the B2B stuff for March. Is that supportive of the book or the healing sexual trauma, or is it just a distraction?
Yeah, it's probably just a distraction.
And it's like, we can play that game. Because remember that, like, it's like, okay, here's another, you know what I mean? Until we're really
it's like
ready.
A real estate license. It's, yeah, that's probably a real estate license.
Probably. And I did that for a year and a half. And I had some success but my soul came calling and was like, mm-mm.
Yeah.
So it's like, we can play there. I mean, and I'm sure you're going to help people and, you'll find success there and stuff. But it's like, we come back to that authenticity. And you literally are teaching this, right? Knowing thyself, healing the relationship with thyself. And you are living in a distraction.
And it's like you said too, that you didn't give the backstory. And that's the backstory. Like I just said, that is the backstory. That is where it all came from. And you coming out there, and you were on stage, you said, right? Like being called to put that out there on stage in that way. If you hadn't done that, then what? Because that's what it feels like to me. Like I'm very much like connecting the dots right here in this moment, because it was an opportunity. I haven't told the backstory.
Because I got the download, right, that you need to start sharing your story. And I swear to God, like later that day, this opportunity to speak at this event. And it was this pivotal moment of, do I lean in and say yes? Or do I go get a real estate license? There was a moment where I paused and I hesitated. I just received this really clear message. Here's this opportunity, not online, and stage in front of people. And shaking, I applied and I answered the questions and I did all the things and I got approved. And I said, well, here we go. And so it's like we always have these invitations. I call them sacred invitations. So it's like, okay, you said you want to do this. Do you want to pick your old behavior? Or do you want to actually follow through with what you said you wanted? And most of the time we pick our old behavior. And then, okay, it's coming back around. Here's your sacred invitation again. And so it's like you can pick your old behavior like as many times as possible. And I don't believe like right and wrong, right? It elongates us getting to where we want to be every time we pick old patterning and behavior. So every time we get distracted, every time we lean into another hobby or something that we're right. But when our soul is telling us, this is where I need to be, every time you pick something else, it's just prolonging you getting to where you want to go. And then you get overwhelmed. And then you're like, why is it taking so long? I'm so exhausted. I'm so confused, right? We do it to ourselves. It's bananas. It's absolutely bananas what we do to ourselves.
Well, thank you, Amity, for being my sacred invitation right here and right now, live on the podcast.
You're welcome. It's been a pleasure. It's been an absolute pleasure. And I do hope that next time we connect, some part of the book has started. You're living your purpose in the way that you know you are meant to.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you this. The reason I had a 4.0 and was on the chancellor's list is because I'm a really, really good student. So you just gave me an assignment.
There we go. There we go. Okay. Tell me when chapter 1 is done.
I will. And I hope you'll come back on. I'm so excited to keep following you. Yeah, no, I'm so excited. Like literally, I know I sent you a message, on Instagram, but I'm like checking on your stuff and I'm like, oh my gosh, you're blowing up. So I'm super excited to keep seeing your growth. And before we get off, if you want to leave any last words of wisdom to my audience, I know you have given me so much in this conversation. So if there's anything you would like to leave to my audience, and also to get a hold of you, like where you're at and how best to reach you, if somebody wants to work with you, because you're obviously an amazing coach. I mean, just got me off my ass and now I'm going to go write a book.
Right? Thank you so much. So I'm on Instagram. I've already said it multiple times, but I really feel like my mission and my commitment is to really show women how to transmute their shame into light. And I want to lead a movement of healed, whole women remembering their worth. And I talked on it, like we're inherently worthy. And it took me so many years to truly know that, because we attach our achievements and how we're treated and how much money we have and the job we have and all these external things to our value and our worth. And it's like, just if I can help another woman know and remember how powerful she is, how magical she is, how loved she is, how incredible she is. And she's probably done some shitty things in her life, and it's like, that will never define you. Like you're a perfect whole being. And that all of that is healable and repairable and restorable. And so that's my message to the world. And then my current offerings, I offer one private intensive, like a one-on-one for women who just need next steps. Kind of like this. They're intensive for a reason, because I don't do superficial. We go straight to the deep end. But it's like, look what we did in 60 to 90 minutes. So my intensive are very powerful and transformative. So that's one of the offerings. And then my other offering is a longer container. It's 3 months. And it's very intimate, where we do life together. So not only do we have our weekly calls, but it's like we're almost touching base every day or the other day. And I help them navigate through the season of infidelity and repair. And then I'm working on a digital product. I have the free workshop, which I offer to everybody for just if you're just finding out and you're in panic mode and trauma response. And so that's a free workshop to everybody. But then I'm working on an actual plan. I'm sitting down, I'm even talking to my husband and God, and the three of us are creating, reflecting on the architect that we built and how we rebuilt our marriage the same way you would rebuild a home. And so that even if you're in therapy, here is a step-by-step how you're going to rebuild your relationship. And the great piece is you repair your relationship with yourself first, and then you rebuild the marriage. So it will include both of those elements. And I'm like really excited about it because like there's a huge, huge gap. So that's something I'm working on privately that I'm very excited about.
My gosh, yes, it is so needed. It is so needed. I mean, you just look at divorce rates, but people are just so divided, and men and women are so against each other right now. And people think it's so easy just to walk away, and that's the easy option, that's the best option. And so the work you're doing here is just it's so needed because
Thank you.
there's so much more to the story than he was a bad guy. See
Yeah.
ya.
I get a lot of messages that thank me for giving them permission to stay because all of the advice they're getting is just, well, just leave. Like, it's just easy, like black and white like that. And they're like, I found your page and like watching your videos, like you helped me see that it's like, it's okay if I decide to stay and rebuild. And so in a way, me showing up is giving women permission that if that's what they choose. And so like that helps me continue to show up.
Yeah. Well, thank you for opening the permission field. And I'm going to link everything, every way to get in touch with you and work with you in the show notes. And I can't wait for a part 2.
Yes, it's going to be great. And I'm looking forward to reading chapter 1 of your book.
Yay.
Yes. All right, Mary. Love you. Have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you. Love you too.